You also have had out-of-body experiences where you have gone into the future. So can you share a couple of those with us? What do you think the year 2046 meant, and what do you think the explosion meant?
And 2189. And wow, I looked around, everything was different. I was in a big city and it was so modern. And I was in awe. And I saw this computer. It's something that you wear, kind of a vest, and it's so powerful. And I don't understand the interface with the human, but I know everyone has it. He said something that I will never, ever, ever forget. He told me the meaning of life. And you know, the whole conversation, the thing that I kept in my heart was that he said, the meaning of life.
This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better.
Hello, everybody. You're in for a treat today because once again, my guest is Joseph Banks. Hello, Joseph.
Hi, Heather. Thanks for having me here again.
I love having you here. Now, in the last episode, you shared your near death experience. You also shared some incredible out of body experiences and some things that also occurred that you were able to prove to yourself, at least, that, what you were seeing and experiencing is very real. We talked about some past lives, but there's so much more that I want to cover. So, for those of you listening, I will have a link to that episode in the description, but you can stay right here because this really is kind of a standalone because I want to talk about some of the things that you've seen during your out of body experiences, including traveling to the future and some of the things you've seen. But I first want to go back to your near death experience because you had some unusual things happen. A lot of people talk about a tunnel and they see certain things, but you were actually on a bus. And then you actually saw a building that was very reminiscent of one that you saw in childhood. So, do you think there were cultural aspects? And do you think people have cultural aspects when they have their near death experience?
Yes, I think I've heard, and I think this is true, that there is a component of a personal experience to the every near-death experience, which is to make you feel comfortable, is to make you feel at home. There is a sense of belonging, there is a sense of familiarity, and I think the most important thing is not to be afraid. There is all these things that bring you comfort, and and that's the compassion in the experience.
You also saw a man in your experience, and it wasn't until later that you discovered who that was. So, can you tell us about that?
Yes. So this was actually a journey, and because in that event of my near death, when I was unconscious for a day, he never said who he was. He was just a man being so kind to another man. But there was something in his eyes that I could never forget. So it came in small increments, really. Um, and through a series of experiences, I found out about this place in Portland, Oregon, called the Grotto. So this is a long story, but I'm going straight to the point. That in one of my out of body experiences, I went to this beautiful place, and I knew I wasn't at home, and wow, this is an amazing place. And I was sitting cross-legged on the floor like a yogi, and this man came and gave me a book, and I recognized him as the man that told me to come back. And there was this, he was standing in front of this little hut, and it was so simple and humble. Just four sticks, a little roof, and drapes kind of floating with the wind. And I thought, this is really a nice place. And I read that book from cover to cover out loud twice, thinking that I could remember anything. And in the end, I returned the book, and I we talked a little bit more, and I left. Um, Years later, I, like I said, I found out about the grotto, and then I went there, and okay, God, I'm here. I'm waiting for the sign, but there was no sign really. It was just a nice place. It's a beautiful place, and I was walking in the upper garden, and I even had forgotten why I was there. Um, and then halfway through my walk, I saw the four stakes and the roof and the drapes that I had seen in my out-of-body experience when I was living in Washington. And I realized, wow, I've been here before. And not in my body, but out of my body. And this was so surreal to me. And it's something that happens in a movie with lots of people with cameras and all the good stuff. But this was happening really. And I looked at that little hut, and inside of that hut there is an image of the crucified Christ. And that was the man that told me to go back. That was the man that gave me a book to read. And that was a man that looked me in the eyes with so much compassion. And that was a man, Jesus, the Christ. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that because I grew up Catholic, but down in Brazil, but just because everybody is. And it wasn't, religious at all, but I was fascinated by the man, by the compassion that I felt, by the most amazing loving eyes, and by his simplicity, like being humble.
It's interesting that he never told you his name. And so my curiosity says, well, is it important to know his name?
I don't think he really cares, really. The thing is, I think he cared about me the most, and that's a sign of I think true love when you're selfless. When you look at someone, it's not about you. It's about the other person. Right? For instance, it's about your listeners. It's about how we relate to each other. It's about how lovingly and how um, important the other is. And at that moment, I think I was most important to that man, and I can see that. And everyone is becoming important to me, and I think that's a cascade effect.
That's one of the things that I find so convincing when I hear these stories is the transformation that people have. And I see, what a caring and loving person you are, and so many other near death experiences. And you really come back, and your message is always the same that, it really is about loving other people.
Yeah, yeah, there's something there. It like movies were made, books were written, and it's still a mystery. It's because it's there to be experienced. It's not to be rationalized in your mind, but it's to be felt in your heart, in your body as a whole. I have another one experience about Jesus.
Please share.
It was one of the most beautiful personal experiences about him. And it didn't start as a it started as a regular dream. So I was walking on the street that I grew up, and I knew I was dreaming because all the buildings were exactly how they were when I was a kid. I even had a crush on a girl that used to live on a corner, and I was walking by her house, and I looked at the house, and so much is different now, and that house doesn't it's not there anymore. And then I realized I was dreaming, and I did the most amazing thing that I like to do in every dream is to fly. And I took off like a rocket. And as I'm going to the edge of space, I see this steel mesh covering pretty much the whole planet. And I looked and I didn't see any way around it. And wow, this is not supposed to be here in my dream. So I came down to the ground again and I let my emotions boil for a moment. And I thought, well, that steel mesh is not going to hold me now. And then I took off again, even faster. And as I'm approaching the mesh, I'm feeling happy. You know, there was a inexplicable happiness grow inside of me. And I was so happy when I went through it and I felt the steel cutting me to pieces. And I felt it. You know, if you ever cut yourself a little, you know how it feels. And I felt that blades going through me. But I wasn't scared. I wasn't afraid. There was no pain, even though I felt the steel. I came whole again on the other side. And I kept flying faster and faster, faster and faster. And I was burning. I was flying with my arms stretched to the sides. And I saw the flames glowing in intensity. You know, they were becoming white. And that white flame came all the way to my middle. And when it reached my middle, I exploded. I became a star. I became light. And I hovered in space for 3 days and 3 nights. And when I looked down, I saw Jesus being born. And I had that, what? This is not supposed to be my dream now. But that was really happening. And I felt, again, that loving compassion. Ah, I see you, brother. I see you. And then I woke up. It took me a while to, you know, cognize those things. And every time I see now that image of the three wise men and the star in the sky, I think about that dream and how beautiful it was to feel those things and how important it was to me personally. And since then, I had other instances where light came out of me. And it's like becoming more than human. And you see enlightenment, and we don't really know how to express these things when. But I see this thread of evolution that you have to experience everything. You have to experience being the lowest and the highest without discern, without making much difference between the experiences other than living them.
That's a very important point because so many people struggle. And I think maybe that gives us some hope that there's purpose in our struggles.
Yeah. Well, the struggle always brings growth. You know, anything that you work through eventually will come out on the other end. And this is beautiful. This is beautiful. You know, I think it's when you stop wanting. I think we talked about it earlier that Buddha said the source of suffering is desire. But in my experiences, is the fulfillment of desire that brings you freedom, because you would eventually stop wanting. And when you have all the experiences, you have everything that is possibly uh, human and animal and plant to live, and then there is more to learn, but not here. And you become more, become this beautiful being of light, and you'll be, helping a brother out, helping a sister out. They will call you angels. They will call you ascended masters. They will call you anything, but in the end, you're just helping. You are loving the ones that love you. It's a cycle. And I thought about angels a lot, and I kind of hung up on this word a little bit. Um, if you really want to see an angel, just look to your side. There's lots of those there. They're riding the bus with you. They are in the cars in front of you. Even the ones that cut you off in traffic. And I think, yep, I see that, brother.
And our pets too.
Yeah, in your pets, yes, yes. So it's a different view, if you will. But if you allow yourself for a moment, to work that muscle, recognize everyone as an angel, as yourself, it will be easier to love yourself as you love thy neighbor. And I think that's the message that the man was like so lovingly um, telling everyone.
So beautiful. There is something that I know people are going to be very curious about. You also have had out of body experiences where you have gone into the future. So, can you share a couple of those with us?
Oh yes, I think the most beautiful, not beautiful, but the ones that struck me the most, it was the first ones, um, where I showed up in this place, and I looked at myself. I'm naked, and so every time it happened, I knew there was something important to see. And, I showed up as myself. And, okay, this is really happening. And I look around. I don't recognize the place. It was shopping mall, just before the dawn. Main Street, maybe, something. And I see no purpose of being here. So I did my thing. I flew off like Superman. And then I saw this nest on top of a tree line, and I hovered around it, and I saw in this nest eagle, a seagull, and two baby eagles. And I remember thinking to the seagull, that might not be the best place for you to stay, brother. They like eating other birds. But that was not the case, and there was peace in the nest. And then I saw this green dot flying in the sky, and I recognized as an airplane as it turned towards me. Since I'm flying, I'm gonna chase it just for fun, because that's fun to do. But something else called my attention, and it was a siren coming from the town that I had flown away from. And as I turned, I saw this huge explosion just growing in size. And I'm not afraid, because I worked those emotions a long time ago. Here comes a fire towards me. And I asked, well, when did this happen? Um, and the leading edge of explosion brings a lot of stuff. And this piece of paper came and hit me on my leg, and I picked it up and I read it. It was September 15, 2046. And the leading edge hit me, and I felt the impact, and I woke up. Um, and I was shaky from that. And wow, what just happened? And, and for days, I was kind of afraid maybe something's gonna happen. Um, and I was curious after that. When I finally processed those emotions that come from the beginning, I was curious. So I looked it up, but there was not much in the vicinity to, no, not a street sign or nothing. But then I remembered the nest, um, and it became all symbolic and beautiful. The eagle is a symbol for this country, the United States of America. But later I realized that the seagull is also a state symbol. It's a state bird for Utah. Uh, and I saw pictures of Utah, and wow, that's the place. And now there's something that I can hold on to. It's an evidence. It took me a while, but um, it took me 2 years actually to go there. So I finally booked a flight and I went to Salt Lake City, and I rented a motorcycle and I rode all over Salt Lake, and then I saw the mountains, something that I had seen in my vision. And then one night I slept in one of those mountains, cowboy style, just me and the stars. That was so beautiful. I wanted to see the sunrise from the top, just like I had seen in my vision. But in June, the sun rises a little different than in September. Um, but I realized I was in the right place. I saw military airplanes taking off from a nearby Air Force base, and that was the place. And I was so curious. And I learned about the Mormons moving to Salt Lake, and that vision also came to Brigham Young uh, when they were fleeing persecution, and became religious. Became another adventure of Jesus Christ, um, which is really. And I began to pay more attention to this man, and I was kind of worried about for years, but now I relax into the knowing that sometimes we go through major human transformations, and sometimes they happen this way. And my mantra is it's okay. My personal mantra, it's okay. Nothing is truly lost. There's justice, and whatever is taken from you, God gives you 10 times fold.
What do you think the year 2046 meant, and what do you think the explosion meant? Is this, I don't know, a warning or showing you something that's going to happen?
Yeah. So I can go in so many different directions there. Let's see it symbolically. Fire changes. So there will be a major change, not necessarily with violence, but a major change might take place in that year. So I don't really know. Um, I can guesstimate, so I am as curious as you are there listening. So maybe we can work this out together. I know it's an individual experience, but if we share it, we can do it together. So it could be something violent, like we have experienced so many. There's a war going on right now, so it can be something like this. But I'd rather think that Earth is talking to us. I'd rather think that Earth is telling us, "Hey, I'm changing, so be ready for something." I cannot avoid it. I'm growing, and it would be nice if you grow with me.
You also saw, well, you may have seen many, but I know I heard you talk about a future experience that was farther out in time. Can you share another story with us of what you've seen in the
Yeah.
future?
So this happened after this um, 2046. It really affected me, and I I read the Bible. I read so many different things afterwards. I knew that the prophets could do it, and I realized it's something that everyone can do if you just, for a little bit, not be afraid, because it's the fear that holds you back. And if you let go, even at that moment of your own life, everything that you own, everything that those things will come and go. And I did that. So I let go of everything and I saw many things. But I had a question, like, is that it? Like, do we have to go through all this? It's like, is that violent? Is violence in our future? Zombies? What's going on? Apocalypse? We're gonna eat each other up? And then my answer was no. You will grow. And I showed up in this place, and I'm naked, and yeah, this is really happening. And I asked someone, "What day is it today?" And then an old lady, "It's Tuesday." "No, what year?" And 2189. And wow, I looked around. Everything was different. I was in a big city, and it was so modern, and I was in awe. And I could not. My mind was everywhere, and I was beginning to shake. It's like, it's too much, and I have to narrow down a little bit. Just forget about the periphery. Focus on one thing. That's what I do sometimes to understand something. Focus on one thing. And I saw this computer. It's something that you wear, kind of a vest, and it's so powerful. And I don't understand the interface with the human, but I know everyone has it. And maybe it's the fabric of the future, something that we don't understand. We're not there yet, but they're all the same. Like, I like blue. I would totally chose something blue for me, um, but I could not understand it. But I saw beauty, and I saw peace. I saw children playing, and that was comforting. That even though if we have to live any turmoil, any unsettling times, and I know that there is peace to come, and this is but a moment, and I know that we go on forever until we learn all these lessons there to learn, have all the experiences there to be felt, and that brought me a lot of peace.
So, a couple of questions. This is kind of an odd question, but you didn't have any clothes on, yet you were able to speak to a woman. How did she see you?
Yeah, so I thought about it, because people don't see me, but the thing is, everything is happening at the same time. If you think about the ones that stay behind, they stay in a constant state of wanting. I saw a disembodied soul. I saw someone that was lingering, wanting something, and I was able to connect to that soul for a moment.
Which makes sense to me because my other question was, this is over 150 years in the future. And you said it was an old woman. And I thought, well, do we really age in the future or have we solved that issue? But that makes sense what you just said.
Yeah.
What else did you see? As far as you said, a very futuristic city. Can you describe that to us?
So there was a blend of green and modern. So there was lots of plants. That was the thing that, like, wow, thank you. And I even thought, wow, these architects are getting really good. And there was lots of plants, and it was not that the plants were smart, but everything was made to plants, for plants. Even though the buildings were modern, everything was kind of curated towards plants, and how that was one of the most important things, really.
So green space.
Yes, green spaces, um, and I kind of really liked it. So I thought, yeah, these guys are doing it right now. There was no much rush, you know. Life was a little less hectic. In what way this will develop, I don't know. But people were like genuinely happy, and not rushed towards anything. And I know, because one of the things that I despise the most in our current times is traffic. If I Traffic, it really affects me, really. um, but it was a beautiful place.
Was there traffic?
I didn't see any. I didn't see any, not even cars. I know that cars will become something. I think it's already happening. It's not something personal anymore. No, they'll be driving themselves, and
And we may not need cars
you
in the
may not
future.
need cars anymore.
You've talked about some of your past lives, so maybe this is a place that you'll also end up in the future.
Yeah.
It has been so wonderful, Joseph, talking to you. Your stories are incredible. I know you've really had probably tens of thousands of these out of body experiences. So I know you have many, many more stories. And I'm glad that we had a chance just to hear a few of them because they really are quite remarkable.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's something that started after near death. It never stopped. Um, and I'm grateful for those things.
I know you've learned a lot along the way. If there's one thing that you learned that you think it's really important for all of us to know, what would that be?
Um, well, this one, I would like to close with a line from a dream that I had, that I was talking to this really tall monkey, and he said something that I will never ever ever forget. He told me the meaning of life, and you know the whole conversation. The thing that I kept in my heart was that he said, "The meaning of life is to experience being alive." With stress on being. So be alive. Be the things that make you alive, and feel it. Feel it. Feel in your heart. Feel in your body. Because if you do that, you will be living the very meaning of life, which is a simple thing.
It is so fun and interesting to hear these stories. But the important thing, too, is that we bring it back, the lessons, and that really living our life here the way that we should be living. Thank you. I have so enjoyed it, Joseph. I have loved getting to know you. You are a beautiful soul, and I'm so grateful that you shared all of this with us.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, everyone watching. A big hugs to you guys, and see you next time.
All right. Take care. So wonderful to talk to Joseph. We met at the IONS conference. And I think that's the beauty of the IONS conference. It's not just that you get to listen to these speakers and the conference itself, which is amazing, but you just get to connect with people, people that were strangers before the conference, and you just start chatting. People share their stories. And, that's kind of how it was with Joseph and I. We just sort of came together in a group, and some of us were chatting, and I got to hear his story. And it's so wonderful for him to share here today. I just heard a little bit of his story, and there's so much more to it. These out of body experiences and all that he saw. I mean, the future, he talked about reincarnation, being a star. I mean, there's just so much to his story, just experiencing these things. I love learning about this kind of thing, and I would love to know what you thought about Joseph and some of the things he shared. I mean, there's so many things that you can comment on. So share what stood out the most to you. Also, if you prefer just to say you made it, that helps too. Every comment, it does help my channel to grow. So I do appreciate it. But I also really love reading your comments. And for those of you that are regulars, you know that I try really hard to read every comment and to get back to you. It's getting a little harder as the channel grows, but I really do try hard to keep connecting with people because I'm so grateful that you are here watching my channel. So thank you for your likes. Thank you for subscribing. Always go to the description to find links, to find a link to part 1 or part 2, or a link to my playlist with all of my episodes. And when you hit that link, if then you see the word playlist, click that, and that'll take everything in order from newest to oldest. So you can watch everything if you want. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I hope you enjoyed Joseph as much as I did. Such a great guy. Not only, great experiences to share, but he really is a wonderful person. Thank you. Take care, and I do hope I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. Please add comments and questions you'd like future guests to answer. Also, if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That'll help keep this podcast going. You can also go to Beyond with Heather Tesch to look for more episodes.